The Australian Defence Force, you're right, has played a very important role already in this COVID-19 response, just like they played a critical role during the bushfires over summer. So our Australian Defence Force personnel are highly trained and capable to lend assistance to our state authorities when they're requested. So that request has gone in, and I understand that the ADF now will have more numbers coming to Victoria. And the sort of work that we're doing is working with Victoria Police on the border control measures, working with health authorities on the testing, working with the tracing, the contact tracing. Now, whether or not they should have been brought in earlier, I think that's a really rather moot point right now. Our challenge now as Victorians, as Australians, is to get on top of this outbreak, to control those hotspots we have right now in Melbourne and make sure we're doing everything we can to keep Australians safe, keep Victorians safe, keep Melburnians safe.
You mentioned the bushfires. Your electorate was right in the thick of that last summer, of course. If we do see another nightmare bushfire season starting up in just a few months on top of the pandemic, how stretched will our resources be? Can we handle two crises at once? How important is it that we get on top of the pandemic before that bushfire season hits again?
Well, you're right, Ash, to mention the bushfires. It's been a bloody tough year for a lot of Australians. I mean, we can't take a trick this year. New Year's started with bushfires and then into the coronavirus pandemic. So, yeah, there are challenges we're working through together. What I do know about my community, what I know about communities that have been impacted by the bushfires, is they are extremely resilient. They're working hard on the recovery now. There's a lot of work going on already in terms of cleaning up house sites. More work needs to be done in terms of public infrastructure, I must say, and making sure we get that back into shape for the community to enjoy. But, you know, thankfully, we're in the middle of winter here in Victoria. We just had a nice east coast low, would you believe, Ash? We've had a couple of inches of rain in Gippsland over the last couple of days, so that's taken the edge off in terms of the previous drought conditions we endured as well. So things are looking up for us here in Gippsland, but obviously we're very conscious of the coronavirus and its potentially to spread to regional areas, potentially if we don't do the right thing. And that's why this lockdown, the work we're doing with the Australian Defence Force, with the health authorities is so important.
The business of government goes on despite the current challenges. It's now been more than a year since the Productivity Commission delivered its review into the Veterans Affairs system. We've seen Labor being critical recently of delays by the government in terms of responding to the findings. Can you let us know when you are planning to respond to that report? Will it form a part of the delayed budget?
Well, I'm a little bit disappointed that Labor has decided to go down this path because, thankfully, the Veterans Affairs portfolio is one where there's enormous bipartisanship, generally speaking. And, yes, the Productivity Commission report is a very significant report and was intended that would respond to it during the May budget. But, obviously, circumstances with the delay of the budget to October have intervened. And so now we'll be looking to do our full response as part of that October budget process. But what I would stress and emphasise is that we are actually reforming the Department of Veterans Affairs already. There's been some very significant changes made to our veterans portfolio over the last few years. Things like free mental health care for all veterans and their families, making sure there's a veterans payment available for veterans who are reporting mental health conditions, making sure things like psychiatric assistance dogs are available for the first time. Some quite significant changes have been made as we're doing this reform process. Whether or not we can respond to the Productivity Commission report in the timeframes we originally intended to or not, we are still transforming and working with our veterans on a daily basis.
Minister, in particular, there have been calls for you to rule out adopting the recommendation to abolish gold cards for veterans' dependents and also outsource Department of Veterans Affairs services to an independent commission. Labor's arguing that those issues are causing a lot of anxiety within the veteran community. Can you put their minds at ease on those fronts?
Well, Labor is causing the anxiety itself by trying to stir up trouble within the veteran community. When I talk to ex-service organisations, and I do on almost a daily basis, when I listen to their concerns, they want us to keep doing the reforms we're doing right now, where they want a standalone Department of Veterans Affairs, and that's what they've got. We're supporting more than 300,000 veterans and their families throughout the year. The Australian people should be very proud of the fact that their taxes, more than $11 billion of their taxes, support those men and women who serve in our uniform. So we have a lot to be proud about as Australians, as people who support those who serve our nation. So I think it's a bit mischievous for Labor to try and score a political point at a time when there's already enough anxiety in the community. So I'm just going to keep on working with my department, with the ex-service community, keep delivering the services that our veterans want, keep putting veterans and their families first, and working towards what is a very important date in about 3 or 4 weeks' time with the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, making sure our veterans are able to celebrate and commemorate that date, even though we will have to be socially distant again.
But just back to the question, though, when it comes to abolishing gold cards for veteran dependents and outsourcing Department of Veterans Affairs services to an independent commission, are those two options still on the table? Are they being seriously considered, or can you rule them out?
Well, Ash, it's unfair of me to stand here today and rule things in and out when the full response to the Productivity Commission is part of the budget process in October. So there are some things there that I don't think are going to happen. I'm not going to share them with you now. I'm sorry to disappoint you in that regard. But I have to respond to the whole report. What I can tell you is the work in my department is ongoing during this COVID period. The fact that we've been able to have our staff, our DVA staff, working from home and achieving greater productivity in terms of delivering outcomes for veterans has been quite sensational. We've been doing a lot of telehealth with our veterans, which has worked really well. And the Open Arms Veterans Counselling Service, which is that free counselling service I mentioned before, is taking more calls than ever. So our veterans are being well supported in what is a very difficult time for a lot of Australians. And I want to assure the veteran community that help is still there for them. If they're having trouble, if they need a bit of help, reach out to Open Arms Counselling Service, reach out to their ex-service organisations and get the help they need.